Hey guys, it's Trippy. Welcome to the video. Today we're going to be talking about the DJI Mini 3 Pro. I will just quickly say I'm filming this on my phone, so I apologise if the camera footage is all kind of shaky and my voice is all over the place. The majority of this video will be footage from the drone. I just want to hold the phone and record this just to point out a few things so you can see what I'm talking about. I will be talking about the RC as well in a moment, but I'll keep it as short and sweet as I can. Just a few negatives to really start things off. Hopefully there's not going to be many. For the most part, I'm really happy with the drone, but I just want to mention a few of these things. So the back of the drone, the USB-C as well as the SD card slot are completely unprotected from the elements. So if you happen to get caught out in the rain or you crash into a puddle or whatever, that's never going to be ideal. But to have those unprotected is a bit of an issue for me. Not a sort of refund worthy issue, but still a bit of a worry. That I know of, nothing came with the drone to cover those. There might be some mods you can stick on there or even like a bit of tape to cover them, but still you would hope the SD card would be completely protected, but it isn't. Also the battery, you can see these little lights on the back here. As far as I know, the only way to check the battery life is either plug the battery into the drone or into the charger. That's not the end of the world, but if you're like me and you don't label your batteries and you sort of throw them all in the same bag, if you're like using like the fly more combo, you can get them mixed up. Again, it's only an inconvenience, but I imagine it's just because they've got to keep this drone under a certain weight limit, and having that kind of extra bit in the battery is just going to put the weight up. But it is a shame that we can't check the battery without it being plugged in, at least that I know of. And the final point, and I think again this is because of the weight limit, is on the other drones I've had, which is the DJI 2 and the Air 2 and the Air 2S. On the wings, if you want to call them that, there was a little like landing stick. Unfortunately on the Mini, I think this is the same on all the Mini series, that's your only bit of landing. So if you're on uneven ground and trying to take off or land, it is prone to slipping. It happened to me a few times today. Again, not the end of the world, something I'm going to have to get used to, but obviously if you're out and about trekking and walking or hiking or mountain biking, a lot of the time you're not going to find a completely flat surface. So when the drone is kind of taken off like this, when it first kind of kicks into gear, it will kind of move around a little bit, which is a little bit nerve-wracking when you first have the drone, but again, you might just get used to that. But so far at least, that's the only negatives I've really found with it. I'm going to talk about the RC now anyway, like I said, and then we'll finally get into looking at the footage of the drone itself. So this is the remote control. Sorry for the weird angle. I've got my phone leaning on the table just so I can record the screen and both my hands. On the back, you've got your joysticks. They just screw in. This touchscreen is nice and responsive. So you tap the buttons, rotate the camera, zoom in, autofocus, just every part of the screen just reacts as you'd like to. When you press record, there's always like a slight delay of like half a second. But yeah, the last thing you want is to be flying, and if a helicopter comes over or the wind picks up or it starts raining and this isn't doing what you want it to. So yeah, no issues whatsoever with this. My one problem I'd say with the joystick is this one here. It might be both of them, and it might just be because I'm not used to them. When I push just to go forward, it will almost go a little bit to the right as well, so only ever so slightly, but it won't fly directly straight, and I was in like a no wind environment. But again, it might be just because I've been using the other controller for so long, I'm not used to this one. This one might be a little bit more like sensitive, accurate. Not the end of the world, just something to get used to again, and I'm sure I can sort of tweak that in the settings of the sensitivity of the drone as well. But the controller itself, well worth the money. The amount of times I've been out and wanted to fly the drone, but getting the drone out of my backpack and plugging it into my phone and it doesn't always connect, or it takes a long time. It's just, I know it sounds like first world problems, but this is just so much more convenient. I don't have to like make sure my phone is charged up or any of that. If someone rings me, it's not interrupting my screen. Yeah, so if you're going to get the Air 3 Pro or the Air 3, I'd definitely go with the remote control. It comes with the carry case and the extra batteries as well with the Fly More combo. So yeah, for me, it's a must-have. I wouldn't be without it now. From this point on in the video, all the footage and photos are going to be straight from the drone. I might color correct some of them, but I'll put on the screen when I've done that. And I will just quickly apologise for the audio quality of the video. My usual microphone that I use is broken, so I'm recording this on my phone. But with that all said, we can finally get into the meat of the video. So we're going to start off by testing out the active track. I couldn't run or cycle or do anything quick because my back's playing up at the minute. So I thought instead of going fast, I'd go slow, but in a more sort of dangerous environment for the drone. So I went into the woods. You'll hopefully see that a lot of the maneuvers it did were really impressive. It almost took a unique route, which made it harder. I was like, oh, okay, it's gone that way, fair enough. Big objects like trees, it seems like to have no issues whatsoever with. Again, I know I was moving slow, but it was dodging them nice and smoothly and no problems at all. However, smaller objects like branches and twigs are a big problem. I don't know if it's sort of like from the front or from the side, if there's like a weak spot for the drone, but it did actually crash into a branch. But thankfully, most modern drones now are quite durable. Obviously, you don't want to crash them at full speed, but when I first started flying drones a couple of years ago, I was really worried every time I had a crash. Whereas this time, when I heard it hit the branch, I was like, oh, it's crashed. That means I've got to pick it up. Oh, bloody hell. So there was like no fear at all, and it was like a brand new drone. I've just sort of crashed into a load of mud. That was probably the biggest inconvenience, was cleaning it off. But with that said, because of the way it did crash, I'd probably recommend against the drone, at least for the active track side of things, if you are doing faster activities like mountain biking through the woods, because I just don't see how it could not hit something. If you're in, I guess it depends what you're using it to film for. If you are like doing slower based movements, it shouldn't have an issue at all, and I definitely trust your drone. It just all depends on what you're doing and where you're doing it. I couldn't really test the wind resistance today because there wasn't much wind. However, there is a channel called DC Rainmaker who does some amazing videos on drones, and he's really stress tested this drone as well as many others. So if the wind is a big problem for you, I definitely recommend going to his videos and seeing what the drones can perform, like how they perform in wind. Apparently, at least according to DJI, the Mini 3 Pro can resist the same amount of wind as the Air 2S, and I've flown that in some pretty crazy conditions, so you shouldn't really have an issue there. I imagine with the drone being lighter, it might be more prone to big gusts of wind, but yeah, I can't really test that, but I'd have no issues personally when flying in like sort of rougher conditions. One of my favourite new features for this drone is that it can actually look, I believe, 60 degrees up. Most drones, you're about level and it can obviously stare all the way down. But this one, there's nothing to block the camera, so it has that extra kind of, 60 degrees. So if you're filming around cliffs, normally I have to fly quite far back to kind of show the scale of how big the cliff is. Whereas now you can get much closer to the cliff and look up. I got a shot of a couple of guys standing quite near the edge and they're silhouetting. Stuff like that. Although I probably use it quite rarely, it does, in my opinion, look amazing. I'm sure there was like other uses for it as well. Like you probably fly low and have the camera look up and have someone on like a bike jump over it. Yeah, I think the potential of it is pretty much down to your imagination, but it's such a nice feature to be able to use, even if it's not used very often. The other feature I love that the camera can do is that it will rotate 90 degrees to go into what I call Instagram mode. So rather than filming normally and then having to crop and realizing, oh, I've not quite got that as good as I'd like, you can now do that all on the fly just by hitting the button. The camera rotates. You still have your grids on your screen if you use those with your remote control. And you can just see exactly what the drone's filming, and you don't need to do any cropping or anything. It's just ready to go. Obviously, you can still edit it afterwards to make it look better, but yeah, it's just nice and simple. And if you love using Instagram and TikTok or whatever like that, it's set up perfectly for it. So just a really nice feature, and I think they'll probably do that for like all drones going forward just because of how handy it is. I will just quickly show a couple of clips as well. I don't think this would be any different from the other drones, but it comes with the master shots as well as the quick shots. So I will put them on screen now. Again, nothing too extreme. It's not something I'd ever really use other than a bit of a gimmick, like maybe a one-off thing. Always handy to have, but again, I'm not expecting these to be any better or worse compared to other drones. I did do a quick test in slow motion and I'm pretty impressed with it. It's obviously not perfect, but if I was to use this in my like a vlog kind of video, I'd be happy with it. Obviously it's a little bit down to personal preference, but the sea for me looks like amazing, especially as the waves lap onto the beach and go nice and white. Yeah, very happy with it. Again, could be better, but it could be worse as well. I did take a few photographs while I was out, but if I'm completely honest, I know nothing about photography. I don't really know much about videos either, to be honest, but I'll put them on screen anyway for you guys to judge. These won't be edited at all. But to me they look good, but someone with a better keen eagle eye might think, oh, the shadows look rubbish or the colors are off or whatever. Yeah, I don't really know, but to me they look fine. But I don't really use the drone for taking many photos anyway, but I thought I'd share a few examples just so you guys can judge and see what they look like. So I think at this point I'm probably going to wrap up the video. I've showed off everything that I can think of showing off and talked about hopefully all the big points. Again, I'll put a link in the description and comments for DC Rainmaker for his wind test videos. But for me, the drone, again, this is just first impressions, not a proper review, but I'm really impressed with it. I was a little bit worried at first because of the smaller sensor. The Air 2S can obviously record in 5.4K. This Mini 3 Pro is back down to 4K, but a lot of videos are still in 1080, so I can't really complain at 4K. And from what I've seen while I've been editing, the footage is pretty damn crisp. So keen to see what you guys think of it. But yeah, for me, it's going to be my go-to drone from now on. If you are looking to buy one, I would definitely recommend getting the Fly More package, because there's nothing worse than being out and about on a perfect day for filming and your one and only battery runs out. So it's obviously a bit more pricey, but if you're going to buy a drone, you might as well go that extra mile and get the extra batteries, and then obviously you've got the multi-charge to go with that as well. So yeah, very happy with it. Keen to get out and film some more just to see how it gets on in different environments and different lights, but so far it gets a big thumbs up for me. So yeah, if you guys have made it this far into the video, I appreciate you watching all the way through, and hopefully you found it interesting, or maybe even a little bit informative. But yeah, I'm going to say peace out, and I'll catch you on the next one.